Irina Zarutska, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee, was stabbed to death in the most revolting way by this guy. And I'm not even going to say his name because he doesn't deserve it, but I am going to mention his race because it is important for the content of this video. A black guy, a 14 times convicted felon, if that's the exact right terminology, does the most despicable act. It's all documented by the cameras. He stabs her and she basically dies out on the bus. There are other people on the bus. They do nothing really to help her. And this video, unfortunately, is not being documented or talked about at all on the mainstream media. And really, it's surprising because the amount of other stories that are constantly being pushed out, there is a really important question that we need to ask. In fact, there's a few important questions that we need to ask. Number one, why is the mainstream media not talking about this? What do they have to hide? Number two, how is it possible that a bus full of people didn't really do anything to help her? And what does it say about our society? Let's talk about it. So obviously the footage is disturbing and I'm hoping that you haven't seen it. But if you are on any sort of right-wing media commentators, everyone is talking about this. It seems, except for the main media outlets. And I think this comes for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's a misconception about mainstream media that its job is to actually inform us and keep us educated and, let us make our own opinions about things. That's not what the media does. The media has an agenda, a very clear agenda, and they use their media to promote those agendas. And when there's content that doesn't fit in or align with those kind of stories, then they will pull back from reporting it. That's really the story with Irina. You see, people have become so afraid to talk about black crime. We're just going to say it. Why is that? Well, because it's inappropriate and it makes you seem like you're a racist if you dare say something along the lines of black crime against whites is much higher than white crime against blacks. And the media suppresses all the facts that document this and that provide the proof, but the proof is there. If you do even a little bit of research, it is very clear that the crime rates at blacks are much higher, but people will not say it. People will not talk about it. You see, we all know the very simple fact that if this was reversed, if this was a white man and there was a beautiful black girl on a bus and he just stabbed her, there would be a lot of media hullabaloo. I mean, do you guys remember George Floyd? Do you remember what happened? Do you remember how much the world freaked out at a white person attacking a black person? But the roles are reversed. If a black person attacks a white person, we just can't talk about it, let alone if it's a beautiful young female who's really kind of the epitome of what we want our societies to look like. America, a refugee, somebody who's come in, who's been brought in legally, may I add. And then there's this guy. There's this black guy, a 14 times convicted felon, and he shouldn't be out on the streets. Look, there's an idea in Judaism that a person should be given forgiveness. If you make a mistake, you are given a second chance. Second chances are important. The question is if 14 chances is a system that really works legally. And I think the secondary question that comes up from this entire conflict, well, the third question actually, the first one is what is wrong with the media and why won't they hide it? The second one is why are we so manipulated by being politically correct and afraid of racism that we won't actually talk about what's going on? And third of all, what in our systems has allowed for such a thing to happen? What about the legal system has made it that this kind of person is allowed to walk free? And then on top of all of that, the other question that comes to mind, and this is a really big question, is how are there people sitting on the bus and watching and not doing really much about it? How did that come to be? Because to me, that's the scariest thing about our society. How far we have gone and come that we could watch somebody dying out and honestly feel kind of like it's not really my business. That's not something that is a good sign for any society. For any society. That is, in fact, I'll go as far as to say, that is a terrible indicator of how we're doing. So let's start with media manipulation. The media is petrified of any content that does not align with its agenda. We saw it over COVID. We see it with the Israel thing. We see it with the Islam thing. We see it with the transgender thing. We see it across the board and across the spectrum. And we know that the mainstream media is mainly dominated at the moment by left-wing voices, which is why Paramount, CBS bringing in Bari Weiss. I don't know if you heard about this. The woman who runs Free Press, an unbelievably very talented journalist. She's a lesbian. She's Jewish, obviously. She used to be a New York Times editor, I think, and she has been brought out by almost, I think, $100 to $200 million. It's a big scandal. I'll tell you, he's very frustrated about it. Candace Owens, she does not like it. She's pissed, honestly. But it's a big deal because they're bringing her in as a high level person, editor, contributor, etc. at CBS. And it means that they're really changing and actually starting to realize that the audience wants truth. The audience wants facts. But the media lies to you. And this is something that we just can't drill in enough. The media doesn't have your best interests at heart. I was watching a Candace Owens video the other day in which she was saying, I don't watch movies anymore because media manipulates me. I just read books. And I remember thinking to myself, well, you know, books can manipulate you as well. There really isn't a difference. If somebody wants to convince you of something, all they have to do is put it into documentation. But we tend to look at books and say, oh, no, this is where solid facts exist. Movies aren't really like that. The news is where we kind of are in the middle, right? The news feels to us like written facts. It's kind of information that we trust. And sometimes it's on the TV. But because it's really tends to be very professional and highly cut and edited, it feels to us like they're really trying to provide the truth to us, but they're not. They never are. That is not the point. And they have become so afraid, just absolutely afraid of this whole anti-racist movement that they won't document stories that should be the number one conversation in America and in the world. People out there killing innocent people should be talked about. And it should be talked about in the way that the right-wing media is talking about it, in the way that the conservatives have brought it up, in the way that the people who are here to fight back against mainstream media are. And so it tells us a lot about where we are, that people are so afraid to say, hey, blacks commit high crimes. Maybe there's an issue with that. It's not the same as I hate all black people and I have no interest in black people being alive. That's not the same, but it's just saying something along the lines, this guy's a 14 times convicted felon, but just because he is black, you're afraid to talk about it? How far have we come? Where's your commitment to justice? Where's your commitment to authentic, honest, truthful telling of what is going on in the world? And we've lost it. The mainstream media has lost it. So many journalists have lost it. And I think that's important to realize that in a world that you're being provided an onslaught of information from every single direction, the ability to have critical thinking and the ability to recognize that the assumption that media is being truthful to you is wrong. They have an agenda and they have a serious agenda. And that agenda is not a healthy one. It's not a good one. And that brings us to the next point, which is how the heck as a society have we reached the point where this woman gets stabbed and no one really does anything about it? How she's lying there for minutes and we're not going to get graphic and no one really does anything. And I think this is part of where the media plays a part in the dangers of what's going on with us all mentally. You see, obviously the media has propagated the problem of racism, not just because they have their own agendas and they're afraid to share the story, and that's the reason that it's not being presented to us publicly, but also because they've pushed narrative so hard, they've bullied narrative so hard, they've made it seem to us that there's only really one way or another way that's correct. People are so afraid to say anything that's nuanced. It doesn't really matter that this person's black, but it might have something to do with the fact that he's a 14-time convicted felon. And maybe the fact that he's black and we can't talk about it is a problem because we should be able to talk about it. I'll tell you this much, if he was Jewish, the media would be talking about it. If he was Jewish and he had attacked this refugee, the media would be talking about it. I mean, I saw a GoFundMe page for this guy. And why is this GoFundMe page so important? I think it was brought down by GoFundMe. I think they shut it down once they heard about it. But the GoFundMe page and the fact that nobody really responded to her and took care of her on the bus are both correlated because we have been eroded as a society. The media has made us so desensitized to humanity that we have gotten our what is right and wrong super duper warped, just off, just not right. To the point that we're so used to scrolling on our phone and seeing death and thinking about that when we see it in real life, it doesn't actually faze us as the way that it should. And that, my friends, is a problem. And that's something that we all need to be thinking about really deeply right now. What does this Irina thing say about us? Not just about the media, not about just the society that's falling apart and convicted felons being released and us not being able to talk about the real causes of what's going on, but also why this case happened. Why this was allowed, why there are people out there who are reaching 14 times of crime. What is going on? Because fixing a society starts with us being able to look inside and say, okay, maybe something needs to change. And maybe I'm not doing something right. And maybe the fact that we can just talk about this and not be fazed by this kind of content anymore. Maybe that's a problem. And maybe that deserves to be fought. Maybe our children shouldn't grow up in that kind of world. And I think about that every single day. that I really, really, really hope that my child does not grow up in a world where she could be on a bus with somebody who's stabbed and not notice it, not really think that it's her responsibility to stand up and fight back, because it is. It's all of ours. It's our responsibility to have courage. It's our responsibility to be discerning. And it's our responsibility to have empathy. And these three things have been eroded so much, and that's what the story's about. It's about the fact that nobody's falling for the fact. It's about the fact that the media can lie to us and still get away with it. They can bully us into being afraid of calling things out for what they are, and we just stay silent. It's about the fact that the systems are allowing for terrible people to be walking the streets and we're not fighting back, and about the fact that we have almost become immune to it. All these four things combined together, these are problems and they need to be addressed. And that's what the Irina story is about more than anything. May her memory be blessed and may his memory not. And hopefully, may this be the last of these crazy crimes that we see in our midst. If you enjoyed this content, I'm here to ask you, please. 85% of you are not subscribed to this channel. And the more people we can get to subscribe, the more we can grow. The more we can let people know about the work that we're doing on here, which hopefully at this point you found to be helpful to some degree, which is why I'm here. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I am Ira.